And we are live. Happy Sunday, everyone. Gordana, happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday, Lucas. Happy Sunday, everyone. Welcome. It's been a couple of weeks now, and this Sunday we are going to talk about the positive and negative side of ego and how seeing the choice can help you live a balanced life. So Lucas and I love this topic, and we're going to have so much fun this Sunday.
Yes. Everyone watching, I just had my fourth child a week. Let's see, last Sunday night, Monday morning, technically Sunday night. And in preparation, I think obviously everything's divine timing because we knew we were going to talk about this. And then I'm experiencing with my kids and watching their egos be formed and not in not a bad way, like a beautiful way.
Yes.
And also can see how when their egos collide with each other, there's contention and it's been really beautiful to witness. And I'm excited to have this talk today.
Yes, of course. And here's the thing with the ego. Everybody talks about, how you need to destroy the ego or remove it from you in a way. We cannot do that because as human beings, we can't have a human experience unless we filter it through ego. So ego is like the shadow. You can't run away from it. What you can do is find a place where the light is brightest and shines from above so that the shadow will be as small as your feet. You will literally standing on your shadow. It's the same thing with ego. We have to understand that if we fight ego, then ego is triggered. So we have to find ways to be friends with ego. And this is what you and I are going to do today. We're going to talk about how to be friends with your ego, because when you're friends with it, you use your ego the way it was supposed to be used in this reality. You're not allowing yourself to be used by it.
Right. That's right.
And it's not rocket science. It's really easy because it's a signal. When you feel like there is no choice around you, that is a signal that you have fallen asleep, that you are no longer standing straight with the sun above you. Something is askew, and you need to wake up to the truth of what is in front of you. If there is no choice, then that is a lie. There is always a choice. And the positive side of ego will show you that choice. So becoming friends with the positive side of ego and maybe training the negative side of ego like a little dog, how to sit, how to wait, how to be gentle and nice and not bark all the time. That's the way to use the ego. So I think we're all going through this. We all understand that we're looking through our ego, but the key is to be present and say, is this what I want to see? Or are there alternatives?
So good. When I coach men specifically, I talk about the narcissist believes that they are their ego. And I don't think I've drilled down that enough for really it to sink through. What I mean by that is when we are in the throne of our beingness, when we're present, the observer, and we're looking through and observing the world filtered through our ego, the narcissistic tendency is to jump out of presence, go into the other person's view and believe the reality of what they are seen as. So the narcissist can never be vulnerable because they have to live through the point of view externally to what they present to the world. And that's what I mean by they believe they are their ego. So you strip away what people perceive of the person. Who are they? You strip away their identity. Who are they? And that's where it can become really dangerous. And at the same time, when I've done these emotional intelligence trainings and courses and done all these workshops, I've been in some where people attack the ego. And there's a term that said, thank you for sharing. Tell your ego, thank you for sharing. F you for caring. And I'm like, that just does not resonate in any way, shape, or form because
Mm-mm.
our ego is part of us. And I think we a long time ago might have talked about if we killed our ego, it'd be like chopping off our leg. It's insane
Yes.
to think about killing a part of
Mm.
our natural
Mm.
beingness. But so
Yes.
many people talk about ego that way, you know?
Yes, absolutely. The way I describe this reality is that when I know who I am, meaning the indestructible part of me, the observer, the witnessing stillness that is observing this world, when I know that within me, I know who I am, but I also know who you are because you have the same life force, the same core. This is what it means to be one with everyone. We all have this witnessing stillness from within. Now, what differs us is our desires and our worries and fears and passions and projections. That is what differs us, but that is held by the ego. So if you can see that the ego can hold all your worries and all your fears, but it can also hold all your passions and desires in this world, it holds your purpose in this world, what you came here to explore and do. And if you just believe the negative side of the ego will drive you. It will always be in a fearful mode. It will always try to separate you from everyone else. But if you use the ego the right way, you will be separate enough in order to fulfill your desires and your dreams in this reality. And this is why it's so important to understand you cannot erase your ego.
Right.
I know that a lot of gurus will say, well, no, this is not right because we need to erase it and become totally in our spiritual core. If you are in your spiritual core, totally the observer from within, there is nothing to observe because you are not separated from all that is. Ego separates you from all that is. And that's not a negative thing because that's called a human experience. So if you want to be in this world and have a human experience, you have to accept the fact that there is an ego. Ego will pull filters over your eyes, but it won't do it randomly if you are aware of ego pulling filters. And as I said just a few minutes ago, if ego pulls a filter that is called fear over your eyes and it doesn't allow you to see any choice, then you, the witnessing stillness from within, knows that you're looking at a lie, at an illusion, because there's always choices. Quantum field is filled with choices. It's a sea of possibilities. So if you do not see the possibilities, you are locked into one single frequency, which the negative side of ego has pulled over your eyes. And your job, your responsibility is to say, okay, I do not see any choices, which means that I need to find choices here. As soon as you think that, you're already branching off, creating a choice.
That's right.
And it's not rocket science. It's really easy.
I want to read, if you don't mind, this short article I wrote.
Sure.
That's why your ego is your best friend and your worst enemy. And it says,
Yes.
You have everyone fooled. Your family, your friends, your coworkers, and even your employees don't know the truth about you. The truth that deep down you're scared. So scared, in fact, that you'll do anything to shut the voice up inside yourself, the voice that keeps you up at night and is the first voice you hear when you wake up, the voice that screams deep down that you are afraid. Not wanting to acknowledge the truth that the voice presents, you begin the daily ceremony of numbing out the voice with self-medication of all forms, even workaholism. Once you leave your house, you're ready to start your day, but not without your most important asset, your mask. The moment you encounter someone, you show them your mask. And that's why everyone is fooled, because they think your mask is the real you. But in fact, all it is your ego protecting what's really going on inside of you. Your ego, the mask you present to the world, boasts that you have everything under control and people should listen to you. Your ego is how you're known. It's how people know you. Heck, your ego is why you're in the position you're in right now. After a while, it can even become how you think of yourself. You and your ego have been inseparable. Through thick and thin, your ego has been with you through it all. When you were down, so was your ego. When you were up, so is your ego. Wherever you have gone, so has your ego. In that regard, it's been your best friend. It got the promotions for you and the attention of your peers. It's given you the income you're making right now. However, as much as it's helped you, there is a darker side to it, one you've tried to ignore, one you try to outrun or push aside. But no matter how hard you try, there it is, always with you. The reality is your ego is not the real you or authentic you. Your ego is the protective mask you've learned to put on at an early age when you first experience pain from another person. Your ego is equal to the amount of pain and trauma you've experienced. So the more there was a pain, the bigger the ego is now. And so not wanting to feel pain anymore, you strapped on tight your mask and armor and went out into the world. However, the reason ego became your worst enemy is because no matter how hard you try to control or suppress it, your environment, and if you're how hard you try to control how you're perceived, your environment, and if you're honest, sometimes the people around you, you can't. So you can't control anything in ego. This feeling of a lack of control causes people who live in ego to become so angry and frustrated that they begin to manipulate, coerce, and at times flat out lie to get what they want. But in reality, what they really want is a way out of the prison the ego creates. The ego that at one time protected us has now become our prison. It's time as leaders that we acknowledge our ego for the role it's played in protecting our innocent selves, while at the same time letting it know it's no longer needed to protect us. What it is needed is us to live authentic lives where we use our ego and understand how much it's helped us, but we aren't beholden to our ego and keeping us in the prison. So my challenge to every leader is to acknowledge that you are not your mask and you are not your ego. You are a soul that has experienced pain and no longer needs the mask and armor to keep you safe from pain any longer. When we come from a place of compassion and empathy, we're coming from an authentic place where people feel safe and not judged and are free to show compassion and empathy as well. And here's the last line. Yes, your ego has been your best friend. And yes, your ego has been your worst enemy. But may we all get to the place where we choose a new best friend. It's time we befriend authenticity, and may that companionship be a lifelong journey of a beautiful relationship. So in that regard, there are these two sides of ego. I wish I would have actually, maybe I'll edit that article, because I'm not saying ego isn't valid or worthy. I'm just saying that people, when they get stuck in that, they are their ego. It traps them in coming back into presence, coming back into the observer, coming back to being vulnerable again and opening up to all that is good. And so many people are stuck in that. They hate their ego.
Yeah, because as you say, ego keeps you like a prisoner, but it's a question of what perspective you choose. As long as you are looking into this world, this stillness is looking into the world, it has to choose a perspective. Otherwise, you can't see all that is. You have to choose what you're looking at. You have to choose a perspective. And since our first breath, we are taught that this is a dangerous place. So you adapt a fear-based perspective. That means that you literally adapt to the negative side of ego because it's the fear-based perspective. So if you want to change that, you need to start looking for things that will give you proof that you can trust the universe. That would be a trust-based perspective or a love-based perspective. For me, it's easier to say trust-based because not always can you find the love. Love is a word that has been misused so much that it sometimes loses its meaning. So trusting that everything will be okay in the end, trusting that whatever comes your way comes to you for beneficial reasons, that there's something you need to learn, not fear.
Right.
So it's a question of these two perspectives, actually, to know, am I looking from a fear-based perspective or am I looking from a trust-based perspective? And my entire childhood was fear-based. I didn't know it. I thought that, dodging fear was happiness. When I could dodge my father's anger, I was like, oh, today's a good day.
Right.
But that's not that of awakens the negative side of ego, because I will be careful wherever I tread. Wherever I put my foot, I will be careful. And if I'm careful, I'm trying to control my environment, and that takes energy away from me. That doesn't give me any energy, because in the end, I do not need to control it. My job here is to explore it. And I can do that if I trust, if I'm looking through the positive side of ego, because my ego will tell me what I want to explore in this reality, because that is a part of my identity. Identity is such a big word, and it's one of the most important driving forces for each and every human being, because we are unique in a way. Every single one of us is unique, and what makes us unique are the desires that we have for what we want to explore in this reality. And if we are taught from beginning that you're not supposed to explore things, you're supposed to do as you're told, and you're supposed to go very carefully because this is a dangerous place, you will have automatic negative ego filters pulled over your eyes every single time you want to explore something. So it will either make you overthink or not react or overreact. So it keeps you in this reaction mode all the time. It doesn't give you a chance to ask yourself, what do I want to explore? Because you are managing your life. You're not exploring your life.
That's so good. That's so good.
And so understanding that if I want to explore, I need to know what I want to explore. That is to trigger the positive side of the ego. And I have this picture of my son when he was a couple of years old, just to show you what the positive side of ego does to us. This is my son and his positive side of the ego.
Yes.
Every single day, this was what this boy was doing. He was saving the world because that was his passion. And if he didn't use his ego, he would probably be sitting somewhere in a corner not doing anything. And even that is ego, because it puts you maybe in victim mode. Right. So it's impossible to outrun it. Why not explore the world like this? Choosing to say, okay, I'll save the world today because my ego wants that. And then explore the positive side of the ego. You know, when we explore the negative side of ego and try to control every outcome, the life force or the creation that we are creating becomes like plumbing, because we try to control, and then we change and we control and change, and it's 90 degrees like plumbing. Water does not like plumbing. It wants to be excited, it wants to be creative, it wants to flow freely. That can be done when you are not afraid of your reality, when you know that I'm here to explore it, when you look from a trust-based perspective. That is how you allow your life force to find your path through the quantum field and give you the reality that you actually want to do. This is why daydreaming is connected to the positive side of ego. We can't daydream unless we use the ego. If we're using the negative side of the ego, we are worrying. It's the same source, our imagination, used by different filters. The negative side of the ego will project a worry into the future. The positive side of your ego will, and I love this, there is a Scottish folk rock group called Jethro Tull.
Jethro Tull, yeah.
Yes, and there is a one line in one of the most poetic things I've ever heard. It says, circling out tomorrows. This is what the positive ego does. It circles out tomorrows in the quantum field because you're daydreaming of what tomorrow might look like. And there is no fear in it, because otherwise it's called worry, circling out worries, actually.
Right.
So you see, there is two paths, and they're always present. You're always standing in the crossroads of these two paths, right. And you're making small adjustments and small choices. And the choice is fear or trust.
Yes, that's right. I used to give this keynote quite a bit, called Living gray in a black and white world. And I say in the keynote, I grew up in a very religious, fundamentalist home with all sorts of trauma and abuse. And what I was taught was we are to live black and white in a gray world. But I flipped it, and I understand now there is trust. There are polarizations, and it is our choice whether we want to walk in trust or we want to walk in fear. Both will have their own outcomes, but I can never say I am full trust or I am full fear. I'm exploring these spectrums. And that is why our brains are gray matter, and gray is the spectrum that we get to want a darker gray to go to one side, want a lighter gray, go to, or closer to white, whatever the spectrum of color is there. And what I asked people in the keynote talk, I said, how many of you think you're a good person? And everyone raises their hands. I've yet to find someone who doesn't raise their hand and say, I'm a good person. I say, well, what makes you a good person? Because you don't kill, you don't steal, you don't do horrible. That's not being a good person. That is neutral. Being a good person is going out and doing good in the world, exploring, making positive impact, igniting people, talking to people, creating communication and connection with humanity. That's being a good person. Not doing bad is not doing good. Not doing bad simply keeps you at the neutral state. Now it's your choice. Where do you want to go explore? And I think it's so relevant to this two sides of ego. Egos, do I want to go and see, oh, how can I show up in the next meeting? Can I ignite them with love? And can I ask them questions? And can I truly serve them through what my ego allows me to hold that container in? Or will I go there, be so concerned of what they think my ego looks like, my mask looks like, that I'm paralyzed with fear, make no impact. They leave thinking they know the real me, but they don't know the real me. They don't know the real us. And then what do people feel? Lonely, isolated, just depressed. They lose hope. And it all comes down to the spectrum of love, trust, or fear in the ego mask.
Absolutely. It is to stand in a neutral point always. Yeah. Most of us don't give ourselves time to understand that we are in a neutral point exploring something. We become what we explore. We become whatever is thrown at us because we do not give ourselves that time. And every one of us can do that. It's not a question of, I need 15 minutes to meditate. It's a question of a hundredth of a second where you wake yourself up and say, wait, I don't see any choices. Okay, so my ego has hijacked me.
So good. Yeah.
It's really very, very simple. And then go back and see, okay, what's the choice? Well, the choice is I can either speak up or I can walk out or I can sit here. What is closest to my authentic self? And then do it. Not sit there, not knowing what you want, be paralyzed by fear. Paralyzed by fear. That is exactly what happens when ego hoodwinks you. If you are paralyzed with fear, then ego is not allowing you to see everything. It keeps you in a too low frequency. What does that mean? Well, that means that you're vibrating on a too low frequency for your perception to include anything that is higher than that frequency. You become blind to anything that is higher than that frequency. Right. So if you feel there is no choice, this is the truth. You are being lied to by your ego, believing some kind of authority outside of you or some kind of past fear that was instilled in you, but it's not connected to the now moment. So any ego mask will not always allow you to be present in the now moment, because the only thing that allows you to be present in the now moment is to acknowledge that you are the one exploring things. So when you are aware of your being in the now moment, ego is very, very silent. Both sides of ego is silent. And that's where your choice is. Do I want to project something light and beautiful, or do I want to project something dark and heavy? And it's a question of doing that all the time. And anything you project, it's like seeds in the quantum soil. So you're projecting a daydream. Quantum soil will create a garden where you can explore that daydream. Projecting your heavy seeds in the quantum soil, you will find yourself in a world created by your worries, and you cannot identify yourself with it because the negative side of ego is very far from who you truly are.
Yes. So this week we brought a newborn baby home.
Yes.
And I was calling in my son who was playing outside down the street. I didn't know where he was. I said he had 40 minutes to play outside, and then we're going to watch a family movie. And so I go outside and I'm like, where is he? I'm like, Colin. And he's like, what? And he's way down the street, and our neighbor is out. I'm talking to my neighbor and I'm like, it's time to come in, buddy. And he's probably 5 or 6 houses down. He's like, why? And I was like, all of a sudden my ego goes like,
because I say so.
What do you mean? What? And I was like, and what's funny is my neighbor is a good old boy. He's like, babe, he's like, oh, buddy. And I was like, Colin, time to come in now. And again, he goes, why? And I'm like, okay. So I'm like doubling down. I'm like standing there, but I knew, see, when I grew up, the imprint is I would have gotten beat so badly, violently. In fact, one time I got beat with a bullet for something like this, where I got brought in the garage and just beat down. So this is the imprint of my ego. If you don't do this, we are all going to get hurt right now. Also, my ego started like, I'm getting embarrassed at my son. It was such a bizarre, in a split, like,
yes,
like you said, like
this
second. And I go, hey, buddy, just come on over here. And my neighbor, this good old boy, he's like, hey, buddy, we don't ask why on this street, buddy. We just get in there. I'm like, that's right. Listen to Chris. So he comes in, and I said, look, he comes in the garage. I said, don't ask me why in front of people. You can ask me, run over to me, say, hey, why, Dad? You're not that far away. I'm in slippers. I'm helping with the baby, and I said, I don't mind you asking me why, but you got to run to me. We got to have a communication. And he's like, okay. And so he comes in, we get squared away. That was all the conversation. I didn't get angry. I wasn't explosive. That was the conversation. You got to come and talk to me in person. Well, later that night, I was telling you that I had this like almost psychedelic dream where what I realized was my son in that moment did that for me so that I could break the cycle even more.
Yes.
And so he was not disrespecting me. He was providing me, here, Dad, break another cycle. Break another cycle, choose another path. And then what's so cool is he benefits from the next generation of that path being so different in such a healthy pattern. And I realized that every one of my children are providing me gifts like a video game, like they are presenting this left or right, A or B moment. And I get to choose the healthy, the love, the trust, and not go in ego and fear and be embarrassed. What do people think? My son's asking me why. It was an incredible, very psychedelic realization that we're all playing this game together in a really fun, beautiful way if we stay in that place of observer.
Yes. Yes. I love the story because it tells you how you can be hijacked in a split second. You were tired with a newborn baby.
Yep.
That's step one. Yes. Step number two, your son is not listening to you. And step number three, what your son is telling you is something that you would be hurt by your father for if you would have said that. So it comes from the past too. He brought everything into the now moment and put it right in front of you.
Yeah.
Deal with it.
Yeah. The neighborhood.
Yes. But do you see how beautiful it is? Because if you give yourself this split second where you say, wait, there is a choice. I don't have to, why am I reacting this way? Why am I reacting this way? And I think this is the reason we love our children, because when we love someone, we don't want to hurt them. So if we feel that something's coming up where we want to hurt them, we know that this is a lie. This is something coming either from the past or something else my ego is coming up with in this now moment. And that is a signal that we need to wake up from it. For me, it's like starting to breathe or starting to listen to my questions. Why am I reacting this way? What is happening here? Because I trust that my son is a loving human. That is how that is how I wanted him to be. That is what I provided him with here, because he was supposed to be open, vulnerable, honest, and present. And if he is open, vulnerable, honest, and present, and I am reacting this way, my problem, not his. So I need to deal with it. For me, my son has been my absolutely greatest teacher in this world. Today, say again?
That makes me cry. That is really beautiful. Yeah.
You have 4 of them, so you're bombarded each and every now moment to it. I call it window of opportunity. They're opening this window of opportunity for you to realize who you are, to find back to your authentic self, to know that you don't need to be pulled and tugged and pushed as you were as a child.
Right.
This is what they're giving you, even when they don't speak, like this newborn little baby.
Yeah.
So if we do not see that as a window of opportunity, we continue this ancestral DNA-based ego trigger that is there all the time. But the beauty of it is that everything is in the now moment, which means that when you solve something like this, when you can release the energetic bonds to something like this, that means that you literally liberate all the ancestors too.
Yes.
Because you change it on a DNA level. The illumination happens on a DNA level. Your ancestors live as a memory in your DNA. And when you go there and you do something, this is what aha moments does. They illuminate you. Illumination is light. Light is information, right information. And when you tap into that, you change things on a DNA level. I don't know if we can measure this yet, but I promise you in 100 years, this is going to be mainstream, that we can measure it literally, how we change things that we have in those memory, in the DNA as a memory. So why, I mean, if you know these things, then becoming more aware in every now moment, what is the filter I'm using? Is it trusting or is it based in fear? For you, it was like, oh my God, all the neighbors will see that I have no control over my child. Well, let me tell you something. You have no control over your child.
That's true. That's right. That's right.
So it's an illusion to tap into that. And I'm not saying that you will let your son run out in the street because you have responsibility, but you have no control. That's a difference.
That's right. And that's control. That's what I said in that article, is the false reality that the ego creates. It's a prison.
Yes.
You can't control what people think. You can't, if you try to continually control, you just go further down in this enclosed prison where you can't even move anymore. And then it becomes exhausting because you're serving everyone else's perception versus your own authentic expression of your soul. Like what can we daydream and create today? You know, there's an old proverb that says, where there is a lack of vision, the people perish. And that's because when we don't daydream anymore, when we don't explore, like, what good can the world be? What good can I bring into the world? What good can I do? We become stagnant and we become lose hope and we start to just wither away. And that's not in any way, shape, or form, in my belief, why we're here. We're here to explore and create more good, more light, more love, more beauty, more empathy and compassion, more connection, more delight and surprises. Like you're saying, water, like that.
Yes, the funny rush of a surprise. This is what we're looking for. at the same time, we cannot know who we are unless we have a contrast. So the negative side of ego presents us with a contrast. It's a contrast. It's not the truth. It's a contrast. So you're supposed to look at it and say, oh, that's not me. Okay, so where is me? That's the joyful path where you're looking at who am I here? And the things that agitate you are not you, which means that you need to look for something else. This is not you. It's just a signal that it is not you. I mean, you don't want to control your children. That is not you. You want to love them. You want to have a responsibility for them because you brought them into this world. Until they can take their own responsibility, you want to do that for them. That is called love, not control. Right. So it's so easy to get lost in the argumentations that the negative ego will bring into your mind about things. I need to control this, otherwise blah, 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 blah. It's just blah, blah, blah anyway. Because when you stand in this understanding, you can always listen and say, no, that's not me. So what is me? And not outsource it. It's easy to say, well, Colin triggered this in me. Why would he do this? And then it's on him, not on you. It cannot be on anyone else. It's you. Always. Right. And you know, when you start outsourcing it, it feels like you're outsourcing the cause to something, which frees you in a way. But that's not true. What you're actually outsourcing is your own power to choose.
Yes.
You're outsourcing your own power to fix stuff in your own world. And that is, you're outsourcing your truth to something out there. This is why you feel exhausted, because you're not vibrating in your truth. You're outsourcing it. It feels easy for the moment because the ego says, I don't need to be responsible for this. But then it goes down to victimhood because everything that you want to control is outside of you and you can't control it. So you become a victim, or you become a dictator and you try to force your way through stuff. And it becomes the plumbing I was talking about. It doesn't flow freely. The driving force when the negative side of the ego has hoodwinked you is one of either fear, frustration, or anger. Frustration is when you keep stuff patiently under the surface. So that becomes the driving force for that negative side of the ego. The positive side of the ego is driven by trust, openness, willingness to see things, and seeking joy. I know it sounds like, well, that's your spirit or your soul speaking, but it isn't. Your soul is here as this observer looking, trying to learn, and using ego as a learning tool in this reality. It teaches itself what it is and what it isn't. Your spirit is here like a life force, showing you stuff in the world and saying, look, here's some funny things. And the negative side of your ego will pull you away from them in order to give you a contrast so that the soul might learn something here. But if you believe, as you said, as a narcissist will do, that you're only the ego, then you've lost the connection to the soul that is learning here. So you don't learn what you need to learn. Maybe after, when you pass on to the other side and review it, you might learn. But what happens is that you experience pain, emotional, spiritual pain. And maybe that was something that you wanted to do when you came here. But there's always an option to stop it and to start exploring what excites you instead. This is why I feel like there is no punishment here. We are punishing ourselves by believing the lies that the negative side of the ego will tell us. Right. Sorry, go ahead. I interrupted you.
No,
yeah,
that's such a good point. I think this is where the Bible has become Romanistic in its teaching, which is submit or die, heaven or hell, burn or live for this insane narrative. It never was, it's not in the Bible. It's not scripturally based in there. And I want to bring this back because you made me think of this. When you said we give up our power, we miss our power to choose in that moment, like to express the fullness of our power. I just think back in the book of Genesis where it says that Adam and Eve, they took of the fruit and blah, blah, blah. But you know what's so cool about, I've shared this so many times. God didn't come down angry and like, rah, rah. Like it says, and they heard the voice of the Lord God walking in the garden in the cool of the day. Now, if that is not a picture of just serenity, there's no anger. There's no, like you just said, consequence, or, like punishment.
Yes.
And he comes and asks and says, what did you do? And Adam goes, the woman. So he asked the woman, what did you do? And the woman says, the serpent. And
blaming
and not. So if I would have said Colin triggered me, or that triggered me, or my dad beat me and molested, so I miss my opportunity to be what God, I think, really intended as the creator and us to be co-creators, is to say, yes, this is presented and I'm going to come back in alignment to, what if Adam would have said, yeah, I did. What a wild experience. Yeah, I did it. How would so I think the whole Bible is just like in ego, and it's like beating ego and how to control people in ego. It's just ego, ego, ego. When the reality was, you explored something. Did it create your power? Did you co-create with me? Did you bring something new, or did it kill you, take you down this journey? And so anyway, when you were saying power, I think we are to be co-creators. We are creating our reality with how we think, how we believe, what we speak, and what we explore in.
Without a doubt, all of this is in our sphere of frequency. So it is up to us. What is it that I want to explore? It's not a question of how can I create this car or how can I create this house. It's a question of how do I want to feel here? And that is always totally in your grasp.
Yes.
When you start wanting things in this reality, and then you go, why am I not having them? And then you go into ego. Negative side of ego is showing you stuff that will keep you in victimhood. Looking at what can I control in quotation marks. And when you do this enough times, as I have done, I know that I cannot control anything outside of me. Nothing. I can inspire, I can help, I can illuminate, but I cannot control it. I cannot make you do anything. I cannot make anyone feel anything. We all have the responsibility for our own feelings. As grown-ups, as children, we do not. There is a difference between grown-ups and children. Children have this period of time where they are programmable. And this is why their brain waves are much slower. They're in a dream state. They're taking in this world and they are programmable. Our responsibility as grown-ups is to give them the most beneficial programs so that they will be able to create the most beautiful reality for themselves, because we can't create their reality. They must do it. And I can only inspire my son to do it. I cannot control him into it. As soon as I try to control things, I lose them. They disappear from my reality. I lose them. And I can interpret it as punishment from God if I want to, but I don't.
Speaking of, I want to share, Gordana knows the story, but I want to share. So in the birthing process, my wife, this is our fourth baby. All births have been easy before. And so Sunday night, all of a sudden we're laboring for Lauren. I'm laboring, not we, where my wife's laboring.
You did too.
8 hours. And it was a long process. And then she pushed for 2 hours and the baby wasn't coming out. And I, like an hour and a half in, I'm like, something's not right. Like something's off, but the doctor wasn't saying anything. And the nurses were trying. And my wife is just like pushing. She has an oxygen mask on because her oxygen is dropping. The baby's heart rate. I was like, and I got scared. I got scared that the baby would die. And I realized, well, I didn't realize, I all of a sudden went to this blueprint, this old imprint of my childhood. And I cried out to God in this moment. And I didn't want my wife to know that I was struggling. And I didn't want anyone to know I was afraid, because I'm trying to hold space for her. But deep down, I'm like, God, you got to love me more than you hate my sin. And I haven't talked about sin in forever. I'm like, you have to love me more. Like, what did I do? Have I done anything? Like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm like running through this like child to dad again. Like, oh, you know, don't, please love me. It was so wild. And I recognized it. And then I went, of course you love me, like whatever it's going to be. But then I told my wife the next day, or yeah, maybe the next day, 2 days, who knows, they blended together. But I was talking to my wife about it, and she said, even if the baby died, doesn't God still 100% love you? And I was like, yeah. I was like, I know. It was a really weird, like the depth of my soul crying out help. Like, and I don't know how to describe it, but I am describing it. But what I'm saying is, like, what you're saying is those deep imprints of trying to control, and then in that fear, trying to control the situation, it puts us back in these loops and these things that are not true, present, or in flow.
Yes, absolutely. What happens is that your brain hijacks you through your ego and finds the strategy that you have been practicing as a child to save yourself from punishment from your father. It's an authority. God is an authority, and there is a human being that wants to come into this world, and it's almost like it's in the hands of God, and you need to please God, because otherwise God will punish you. And that is a pattern from your past.
100%.
It's a pattern that was created by your parents, because they did not know who they were.
Right.
They don't know who they are. And that's the ancestral thing imprinted in you, which becomes a part of your DNA. And Millie Rose, your little beautiful child, your first lesson from her was, Dad, relax.
Relax. Yeah.
Relax. You don't need to struggle. You don't need to go to survival mode. Nothing is happening. Just relax. But finding that pattern, becoming aware of it, that is to see yourself, pick up the negative ego mask, put it on, and then becoming this thing, that isn't you, and becoming so afraid that you will viscerally feel it, physically act it out, like begging to God and doing all these things, because that's an old pattern. And you can go, no, I don't need to do this. I can just breathe in. Some simple things we can do anytime we feel that this negative ego mask, throws it. It's not just the face. It's actually, it puts itself around your heart and gets a hold of it with the fear frequency, and disconnects the connection between heart and brain. So that's how it shows you just one version of reality, the fearful one, because it holds the heart in a grip where the heart sends frequencies of fear to the brain, and it disconnects it. So how do we connect back? Well, what did you do? I think that you probably started breathing.
Yep.
Yes. That's the only thing.
To the back of my head. Like, that's where my observer is. And so I breathe, and I just came back to my own throne, essentially, to observe. And then everything was fine. And the baby came, and but breathing. Yeah. Connected to our breath, our heart.
Yes. I love how you always describe this observer within you in the back of your head, because for me, it's here. This is where I find myself, like where the third eye would be. I close my eyes and I can feel it, and it goes through my body like a current, very straight through my body, and I can feel, okay, I am present. The way to breathe is either to breathe the 5-5-5 breathing, breathing in, counting to 5, holding, counting to 5, and breathing out. But you can also breathe, say you count to 6 while you breathe in through your nose, and then count to 8 while you breathe out, like as if you were breathing out through a straw.
Mm.
because this oxygenates the blood that is going to the brain faster. This is why holding your breath also helps your blood being oxygenated faster. And it reestablishes the connection between your mind and your heart, your brain and your heart. So it can give you an option. Like there's an option where you can relax too. It's not just fear, you can relax here.
That's right.
So the breathing can always bring you back to this. Also remembering what we just said on this Sunday live here, that there are two parts of ego. And if you feel like there is no other option, you are hoodwinked, and that's a signal. Look for options, breathe, create an alternative to this.
Choice. We've done so many, how to hold our light. It comes to choice. Like choice. Without choice, we would cease to be human. We would cease to have this human experience. Choice, and this is the thing, fear strips away the visual clarity that there is choice. Fear removes choice always, but there is always choice. Nothing supersedes the law of free will in the universe. Nothing. And for instance, I have a friend who's very high ranking in the United States military who is who has not given into the pressure of something he just doesn't want to do for himself. And he's still there, still doing it. Like the news says, well, this isn't, but he's like, well, my reality is this, and the news says this, and if I don't, and it's always like, oh, and what does the news always say? If you don't, and that's what Rome does. Rome was so crafty. I just want to bring this back to this fear-based narrative. Rome at a time when it went to conquer sent people out and gave one dictate: we are coming, submit or die. That's not a choice. It's just submit. No one wants to die. So submit. And then when their political empire changed to a religious empire, their emissaries became missionaries with the same narrative.
Submit or die.
That's it. And so fear and this Romanistic version that comes and creeps and always is moving. And it is up to us to say, no, nothing will cross my free will. Nothing. And there's always a choice.
There is always a choice, especially in our world today, because it's not about submit or die. It's different, but still, it's always a choice. Do I want to go on this fear-based perspective path, or do I want to do something else? I found that anytime I feel this darkness where I cannot see any choice, when I do the breathing, and while I'm breathing, I close my eyes and I say to myself, I am willing to see the possibilities.
That's so good. Yes.
Any second I say this, I'm willing to see the possibilities. This is what happens. If I feel like this is the path, there's nothing else, it's only fear, blah, blah, blah. And I go, I'm willing to see the possibilities. This is what I do. I open up to the possibilities. And as soon as I do that, since my will be done here on earth, I am the co-creator of this. I am the creator of my own reality. When I say I am willing to see the possibilities, they pop up. And I have to be able to recognize them. And this is why we breathe, because connect mind and heart, and you can see them so that you can collect them and allow them to become the new path that you're exploring. And it's like a fractal. This thing that I'm showing all the time is a fractal of how our reality looks like. When we fall asleep, it looks like this. So everything that is here is invisible, all you can see here, and it becomes the plumbing I'm talking about. Well, if you feel that, okay, no other choice, you open up. And even if it's just a slight difference, the next time you feel that you're asleep, you open up and open up and open up, and it becomes branches. That's how you get the diversity in this world. That's how you get the funny rush of a surprise, because it's not just one path going into one direction. this is also why the universe actually does love you, or God loves you, or the quantum field or source loves you, because in every now moment, it gives you an opportunity to change course. You can change course how many times you want. It will never say wrong. It will say, oh, good for you. You find some joy. You found some joy here. Changing path, stopping it and changing path. I'm not saying that the negative side of ego is a bad thing in itself. As I say, it's a way to explore reality. Sometimes we need anger in order to realize that we've fallen asleep. Anger can be a really good thing. It will wake you up and it will say, change, do something. And you go, what's the possibilities? And then you change.
That's right.
So anger is a good thing. Frustration is like a whistle going there in the background, telling you you're not happy, you're not satisfied, do something.
Right.
Fear is also telling you you're falling asleep, wake up. So all of these things are just signals that you're deviating from your path, your true exploration of this reality, which is, what do I enjoy? What do I love to explore here? Well, how do I want to feel? For me, anytime I set an intention in the morning when I wake up, before I could set so many different intentions. And now for me, one is the only one that I need. I say, I want to see love in every encounter, wherever I go. And I don't know what's going to come. Sometimes there's an obstacle, which I feel like, oh, this is not good. And then when I'm through it, I can see, oh, there was so much love in this. I'm thinking about your son saying, why? There is so much love in the why there. Yes. Because he's teaching you things.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
This is one of my favorite lives that we've done.
I know. We say this every single time. I love it.
Yeah. I just want to, and my portion with the word love in Hebrew is ahava, and ahava means to give. So love is not a feeling. Love is the expression, or the law of free will is the expression of love. So it will always give you, like you said, if you choose, it will be great. Here's more. Keep choosing, because love gives. And if we are unhappy and feeling stuck, it's because it's giving us what we are asking for in the fear-based reality. Yeah. And we can always change, because love is ever present to say, oh, you want to change? Good job. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is why I feel like love is the basic fabric of the universe.
Yes.
Love, unconditional acceptance, and joy. Unconditional acceptance of every choice, conscious or unconscious, that you make in this reality. Right. Trying to make more conscious, more informed choices, when you know that if you do not see any alternatives, then you are hoodwinked, and looking for them, saying, I am willing to see the possibilities. Just saying this, it makes my body tingle when I say this. I am willing to see the possibilities. I'm willing to explore the brightest side. I am willing. It's like sesame open. It opens up so many possibilities when you say, I am willing to see this differently. I am willing to see this from a higher perspective. That's a real prayer. If you want to solve something that it feels like it's unsolvable, you need to go higher. You cannot solve anything from the same thinking that created it. Right. So you need to go higher. What does higher mean? Well, it means like I open up, saying I am willing to see more of the frequencies that are there. What am I missing here? Show me the brightest side of this. That's a prayer. You can't say, solve this for me. No, why would they? You can't. It doesn't work that way. You know, there is an African proverb, which I love, and it goes like this. When the root is deep, there is no reason to fear the wind, which means that fear will always be there, But if you know who you are, then you can say, I see you, fear, and thank you for reminding me of what I'm not.
Yes.
And then you just continue.
Yes. So beautiful. So
Yes,
good.
it is. Oh, this hour went so fast. This
Yes.
hour went so fast. Let me see if I can find a finishing. Give me a number, and I'll look it up in my book to finish this session, this beautiful conversation today with
137.
137. Let's see what that is. 137. It's always exciting to see what it will bring. Okay, so I'll take 136 and you will have 137. So I read 136.
Beautiful.
You are creating your present with what you believe, your past with what you remember, and your future with what you imagine. You're the one choosing your truths. You're the one recreating your memories. You're the one playing with your imagination. And here comes number 137. Without you, there is no past, no present, and no future. Now is your access point to anything and everything.
That's so good.
And this is what we say. Now is your access point to everything. Bring whatever feels good from your past into your future. Don't choose the fear-based perspective, dragging all the horrible stuffs into the future where you keep on worrying about things. You're the filter. You're at the center of this, choosing.
Yes.
And whatever you say will become the truth. Whatever you believe reality is, it is.
Yes.
So believing the right thing.
Amazing. Thank you. That's beautiful. And I want to thank you. So many beautiful souls that the Fluid Druid joined us.
Yay!
Today.
Hi.
Cool name. And we got Blake, brother Blake. Thanks for joining.
Hi, Blake.
Suresh, as always. Thank you.
Hi, Suresh.
And Angela Hyde from Italy.
Oh, nice.
So
close to me.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. And thanks, Gordana. This is so beautiful.
Thank you, Lucas, and have a blessed